So I guess just in terms of our preparing for that as a possibility, we will create room in our budget in order to cover that amortization.
Through the chair, because the debt payments are from the carbon fund and from energy savings, we don't have to change any of our debt servicing budget because they're coming from other sources. It requires a financial plan amendment to show the money coming from the right place and to set up the borrowing. Right. But we wouldn't, with those two sources of funding established, it's a minor adjustment. Okay. Well, that's certainly good to hear. And I will just say in receiving the response to those questions, which I'm quite pleased to hear. I was very pleased to see in the report the kinds of savings that, in terms of cost and greenhouse gas emissions, that are possible as a result of making this change. I think what it demonstrates is, next to our transportation emissions as a region, as a municipality, and corporately, there really is an enormous greenhouse gas emission contribution and or potential savings from our buildings. And I think that it is really excellent to see us now moving forward on some of these changes, which I think will be a great contribute to a significant reduction in our greenhouse gas emissions corporately, and allow us to model the kind of behavior we want to see in our community, in the region, and of course around the world, that we really do desperately need to make these kinds of changes to make any kind of dent in our greenhouse gas emissions that we're putting into the atmosphere. So my thanks both to Ms. Tinney and to Mr. Boyson for their responses and for bringing this forward this evening. Thank you. Councilor Randolph.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was very excited when I read this report because buildings are one of the things that I think a municipality the size of Saanich can show leadership on. And I think that I'm pretty hopeful with the green funds, because I remember a few years ago they were having problems with people actually applying for them with projects that were really exciting for them. So I'm hopeful, and I did talk to Ms. Tinney earlier, so I did reflect on the extra costs if we didn't get the money. But I also think this project would be a showcase to invite property owners, especially corporate building owners, to come in and see that. I can't remember what year you said Gordon Hendrick Center was built, but to see a building of that age, instead of, you know, knocking it down and starting again, you can actually do some really meaningful retrofits that will save the municipality taxpayers and operations, reduce our greenhouse gas, and it's a win all around. One of the questions I wanted to ask was around the solar. It concerns me that we dump it, like we create too much with our solar panels. And I'm wondering if there's no way of selling that back into the grid. I know that we have been looking at that, the Roundtable on the Environment at the CRD is doing a regional energy plan. So have we looked at whether we could put it back into the grid for hydro?
Thank you.
Or whether it's worth it?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Brown, and through the mayor. So it's not enough heat to really sell, and it's actually the type of heat from a solar hot water system. It's thermal heat. So it's an extra amount of heat we have to get rid of, and it just can't. We don't have the boilers to hold it for the smaller shower system. So it isn't enough that we can put back into the grid right now. But it's I think it's basically, instead of having one heater exchanger that is venting off the heat to the atmosphere, we just have another one there now. The operators are very excited about the facilities manager there is taking great pride in the system and trying to make it work, and he's sad that he has to put in this additional heat exchanger to dump the heat out. So I think if we pump this in, there's not really an opportunity there to resell the heat. It's best for us, I think, to reclaim it within that big boiler system because of the amount of water at the rec center.
Okay, thank you. I guess my other final comment would be that I look forward to the day for Saanich to have its own utility, where we will be able to actually sell off some of the things that Mayor Atwell talked about, and I especially look forward to it around the Shelburne corridor. I know my colleagues in Nelson do wonderful, amazing projects because they have their own utility. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sanders, and then Councillor Workman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thank Mr. Boyson for bringing this forward. I'm always impressed with the projects and such that you bring forward to uphold our name as Sustainable Saanich. And I'm going to challenge you to what Councillor Brownoff has just suggested, that there's a project for you to get on utility. I just wanted to ask you a question, taking on to what the mayor said about being able to use some of this as well. Within that whole precinct there at Gordon Head, you've got Dog House, and you've done you worked not that long ago on Lamerick House and Burt Richmond Centre. Is there any opportunity to be able to provide some heat into them as well? I know particularly Dog House is looking at some change in what they've got.
Thank you, Councillor Sanders, and through the mayor, we don't, I think this type of system, because it's an air source heat pump hybrid system, and we know that it will fill up and give us energy up to about 90% of the load at the most, because we won't have an excess amount of energy, basically, is what it comes down to. So we'll have the heat pumps providing us, we'll be maximizing the energy that we can get out of them, that's appropriate, but then we'll have the natural gas boilers there as a backup. So it won't be that, it'll basically leave us with a very efficient system. We won't be wasting any heat. So we won't have anything extra for those other buildings, unfortunately, at this time. But there's other options that we can come up with as well. Every building and project is kind of unique, and I think buildings like that, there is some other solutions we could look at as well. So.
I'll talk about that again. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Workman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, staff, for the report. The existing service life of the present boiler is 20 years, or was 20 years. Looking at the new boiler, the payback is 25 years. What is the service life for the new system? Is there any projection?
Yeah, it's 20 years for the new system. Is the service life is what the engineers provide us for the heating system.
But the payback is 25 years.
Yes, yeah, that's the calculation. But it's the same number for the boilers as well.
I'll talk about that after.
It's the same number for the boilers as well, unfortunately, as well.
Thank you very much.
That was a really good question. Any more discussion from council? Councillor Dermott.
Well, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I thought we were asking questions. I don't have one, but I would move the recommendation if nobody else has a second.
Great, thank you for that.
And I'd like to speak to it.
Please.
I also thank staff for bringing forward this initiative. I think it's an excellent one. One of the things that really needs to be recognized is the fact the existing boiler needs to be replaced, and that's going to cost money. So this is a system that will save us money in the long term, because while we might have a payback of 25 years, that means we will have recovered all the costs of this project in that time frame, where if we put in a conventional boiler, we never recover the costs. We're putting out money every year, and we're putting out the capital money to buy it. So there is a huge plus in that respect. There is also, of course, a huge plus in terms of GHG mitigation and GHG reduction. I think somewhere or other, I don't think it was here, I said recently, it's time we recognize that we are sailing on the Titanic. And the only difference in this case is that we know we're going to hit the iceberg. We just don't know how much damage is going to be done, but we're going to hit it. So we absolutely have to respond to the need to mitigate greenhouse gases. That means, in my view, every single decision we make of any significance should be looking at how we can optimize that climate change mitigation. We owe it to the future and to future generations. This project has the potential to be the equivalent of taking about 80 to 90 cars off the road. The average car emits somewhere in the range of 6 tons of GHGs per year with the average use. So, and the cars are getting a little better, but still, at least 80 to 90 cars off the road, and that's really significant, and that's important. And there is another plus to this too, and I'm presuming the heat pumps, the air source heat pumps, will be run by electricity.
That's correct.
It's very likely in the near future that we will be moving to a non-centralized grid, and very much to a distributed grid system. And it's very likely that us and others will be creating microgrids where we generate an awful lot of the power we use from renewable sources, and particularly solar photovoltaic. At that point, we will be providing our own energy for those heat pumps. And we won't have to use natural gas to run the boiler, except in times of higher demand. And so we will be running that boiler, that system, essentially primarily off of renewable energy. And that's very, very significant. So that's another plus that isn't there right now, but I suspect within 5 to 10 years will very likely be there. And just the last comment, BC Hydro recently established a policy where you can in fact feed into the grid if you generate excess electrical power, not heat of course, but excess electrical power. But I'm very, very happy to support this. I think it is exactly the kind of direction where we as a municipality need to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more hands? See none? I'm of course happy to support it as well. It reminds me of my trip to Edmonton for the FCM, which is kind of ironic that we're talking about this fund. I went on one of the tours and I headed out to the edges of Edmonton where they have the Clover Bar facility for doing their, it's where their landfill is. And what Edmonton's decided to do is they decided to close the landfill and invest in a technology to turn the garbage in the landfill into a gas. And that gas can then be turned into electricity and fed back in the grid. What Edmonton's chosen to do is actually to liquefy those gases through a process and turn them into ethanol and methanol. The methanol they plan to mix with washer fluid, that's the main cleaning ingredient, and the ethanol they plan to mix with gasoline and then use that to power the trucks one day that actually pick up the garbage, thereby closing the loop. So Edmonton's kind of getting into this idea that municipalities can be utilities and generate something. When I found out what the cost of this facility was, just to generate the electricity, which was about $60 million for about 1.3 million people, I was really quite floored, thinking that it was a promising technology that was kind of nascent, ready to come, but it's here. It's there, and it's operating in Edmonton, and I expect that facility to be a success. So I think our community, as it evolves, we're going to be looking towards various options, gasification of sewage and municipal garbage that we have to pay tipping fees for, to bring the cost for our taxpayers down by generating revenues through this utility scheme. I think it's about to happen, and we just can't quite see it yet because it's about to happen. So with that, I'll call the vote. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you so much. All right. With that, we'll move to reports from members of council. We'll move to item D1. Madam Clerk, can you please introduce that item for us?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This next item is the public process relating to lands held by the municipality. This is a report from Councillor Bryce recommending the council adopt a policy statement further to the matter of public processes concerning lands held by the municipality.
Councillor Bryce, would you like to introduce this and then have the floor once we have a second?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would move that council adopt the following policy: where Saanich owns or acquires land and wishes to dispose of all or a portion of it through a division or subdivision of the lands, the municipality will undertake a public notification and consultation process. Thank you. This comes before you tonight really basically as a commitment that I made during the last election when the question was asked. And this policy has general applicability throughout the municipality, but it was raised because of a particular piece of property on Pierce Crescent. And so when the question was asked of me, what policy does council have about notifying the public when land is being subdivided, I started doing some digging, and I found out, and as the report will show, this particular piece of land goes way back to 1993 when the municipality acquired it, 4.5 hectares, to add ostensibly to Mount Dove Park. So that took place, the addition to Mount Dove Park. And then over a period of time, because of waiting for sewer and so on, the other 2 parcels were finally disposed of by Saanich Council. The whole thing was tied up in 2006. So you go from 1993 to 2006, more than a 20-year period of time, where this property was in play. As it turns out, using sort of the 1980s kind of policies early on, but as the years unfolded and as the other pieces of land actually came onto the market and were acquired, Saanich evolved through staff leadership, through public interest, to make the habit and the actual process start to involve the public more. And notifications did occur, and things have changed, and in actual fact, we are by habit now doing what this policy is suggesting. This policy just simply elevates it and says, we're not going to just simply notify the public because that's the way we do it. No, we're going to do it because it's a policy of Saanich Council that this notification take place. Earlier tonight, Mr. Charing suggested an amendment, and he in particular identified ESR, EDPA, and streamside protection. Those are really only three of what may be many requirements that go along with land, and those automatically happen. So I did not add an amendment because I didn't want to constrain the policy. The policy is one about notification and has general applicability. It is certainly not the only policy that relates to how lands, when they change hands from public to private ownership, are involved. But it, I think, is just another opportunity for us to sort of actually underscore our public participation policy and give some assurance to the public that when these things are occurring, proper notification will take place. And that's really the essence of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no more, let me add something of my own. Certainly the Pierce Crescent subdivision that is an issue here, but it's going to follow through and cover maybe other properties in the future, we don't know. The issue of this property being subdivided and the notification that was, in the community's mind, was greatly inadequate, followed by 18 months of blasting and other issues. It's a real sore spot for the neighborhood, and I'm very happy to see this come forward. I became aware of it at the Saanich Community Association Network before the election. It came up during the election. I went to the last Lake and South Valley Community Association meeting and heard it again. And I would have put this forward if Councillor Bryce hadn't beat me to it. It was only 2 days earlier. So I'm very happy that she's done the work on this and shared this with the council. And I'll definitely lend my support to it. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. And thank you to Councillor Bryce. All right, let's move on to the next item, B2, and it's the last item on our council agenda. Clerk, would you please introduce it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is a report from Councillor Haynes. This is further to disparaging remarks on the Mayor's Facebook page. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Haynes, would you like to introduce this?
There's several things I want to bring our attention to.
Microphone.
Mic's on, but distant.
We're still getting the training rules right. There's several things I'd like to bring our attention to this evening, but I'd like to start with observation of what happened earlier in the meeting. And it was very interesting, and I think a nice example of what we could move to. Catherine Whitworth was up at the stand, reading from a Facebook page, disparaging comments about staff. The Mayor asked staff how they felt about that, and through the CAO, we were informed it was inappropriate. When I strongly challenged him on a point of order, hey, this is supposed to be in public, he closed me down and said, no, staff have said, advice from staff has said that these comments are inappropriate in this public place.
Councillor, I'm going to stop you there for a second because I think you're retelling the history a little bit. And what I did was I stopped the meeting out of caution and I asked our CAO to comment if the directors may be inappropriate. And he gave a piece of advice that it may be, and it was caution that was put forward, and then Ms. Whitworth then proceeded with her comments. So I don't take it that there's been an allegation to date and it's been substantiated and the way you put it forward. So
very good.
With that, I'd like you to continue.
Very good. I'll continue. But my impression is that the statements Catherine Whitworth were reading from the Facebook page were deemed inappropriate here in this chamber. So let me give you some history. I was informed on Thursday, the 19th, of a series of comments on a Facebook page, Richard Atwell, Mayor of Saanich. And a resident called me and another one emailed me. I went to look at the page, and there's two sets of comments there. And I'd like to thank Darren Morris for coming forward today. I mean, the way you phrased your comments gave us some things to work on. I tried to come back to you with some answers. You've been waiting since the 15th, it was already the 19th. And there were some 44 plus comments built against yours or on top of yours. And then I called staff to check the process. The application was not in. I then conferred with the community association. They'd been working with the applicant. I then reached the applicant, and they were quite satisfied with the process. Is it a 6 to 8 month process? Yes, right now. And I tried to explain to you some of those elements. And today I said if you wanted more information, you could come attend community association meetings, come to a PTED meeting, talk to staff. And just as a piece of information, since June the 25th, I've been working with groups and talking to planning about some of the elements as I come to understand what are the delays about. Okay, so that's where we are with your piece. But in addition to your piece, there were several other comments on the site, and I didn't address any of those because I felt the same way people felt today when they were being read in public, and I didn't want to address them that way. I reached out to the mayor through the day by email and messaging. I had no reply. Thursday morning, I went into his office. I arrived here at 8 o'clock to make sure I could catch him, and I had a bit of other business to take care of, and we had a brief conversation. And the tenor of the conversation was to confirm with the mayor that yes, he had seen my messaging. So the point here, Darren, is that your question was to the mayor on his Facebook, and he never answered in 4 days. So my recall is I mentioned to the mayor, this is not good to have these things outstanding on your Facebook. It doesn't look good for staff at Saanich, and it doesn't look good for you. And in addition to the information that's being asked for, there are disparaging comments. Would you like to engage in that? He said, no, no, you've taken care of it. I said, it's not my Facebook to take care of. You should be taking care of it. And if you'd like to talk about it now, I will. Or we can go in camera, or we can go to a public meeting. And the result of that conversation was we're here today, because his preference was to have it in a public meeting. Now, where are we? Where does this take us to? As you see on the stand there, there's a statement about a respectful workplace environment. I believe, council and mayor, we are the employers of the people in Saanich. And there's a policy there that is the corporation's policy about a respectful environment. And I personally would like to think we would respect it. Does this mean I'm against free speech? Absolutely not. I'm on the same page as Karen Harper. Free speech, goodness me, we wear the poppies for a reason. Our forefathers, grandfathers died to give us the freedom for free speech. Nellie McClung wrote about those days and said, the point of this is respect. Democracy requires respect. I'll read it for you because it was quite pro. The essence of democracy is tolerance, reason, and justice. And we must emphasize this. Let us tell this to our children and impress on our friends, for it is a precious inheritance. My concern was that remarks left on the mayor's Facebook didn't imbibe a good image of the mayor or Saanich. That's the point I'm trying to make in this process. Certainly there is a place for these comments. Frankly speaking, I think some of them are ill-informed. In fact, I can't find one that's well-informed. Of the 45 comments I identified, there were by 14 people. Half of those people don't live in Saanich, know very little about Saanich, but they're using the mayor's Facebook as a platform to disparage staff, the mayor's colleagues, and processes in Saanich. One of the roles of council, and certainly the role of the mayor, is to be a leader, showing the best of Saanich. So I was puzzled why it was being left there. Now, as we consider the whole topic, the mayor made a pledge during the election, like many of us, and we heard one today was fulfilled, and the mayor had the same pledge, and I was at the Pearce Crescent thing too. That was an important piece, and it was great to see the team come together and deliver that in a respectful, workable way. Richard Atwell, August the 10th at 1:46. I made this pledge during the final days of the last election and stick by it. We have agreed on 4 foundations of effective collaboration that we are pledged to follow and will be held to account. Will be held to account. 1. Meaningful public participation before decisions are made. Transparency and open access to complete information. Number 3. Facts over fear in communication. And that's where I tried to work with Darren to give him some facts so he could understand what was happening and invite him in, come and meet others, talk to others. Number 4. Respect for all players, rather than personal attacks, rather than personal attacks, rather than personal attacks, and entrenchment on positions. We heard today that there's comments on the mayor's Facebook by his words should not be introduced into this public forum. So my question is, why then does he allow them to stay on his Facebook, which is another public forum? And I would have liked to have this conversation with him on Thursday morning, because I was holding his Facebook to account. Now here's the puzzle to me. These aren't his comments. These are not the words of the mayor. People in the community are placing these comments on his Facebook. Why? If you want to solve these problems, engage in dialogue. Come and talk to people. Insulting people, showing disrespect and disparaging. Is that the kind of society you want to bring forward? So we're here today. My report asks for a couple of simple things. It asks for the advice of the mayor and my colleagues on an approach. Saanich has a Facebook guidelines for our own staff to use, and it reads something like this. We will not allow content that is inflammatory, abusive, hateful, or intended to defame or be harmful to any individual, group or organisation. I am a sworn officer of this district. The mayor is a sworn officer of this district. We are supposed to uphold these items because at the end of the day, they protect free speech. They don't close it down. In searching around other municipalities, I called several other mayors and raised this issue with them. And they've noticed, and they're puzzled. Why is it being left there? So here's an opportunity to hear from the mayor tonight an explanation of why these are left there. I'm curious, I'd like to know. And can we resolve it? Or is his plan to always leave them there? Our staff have a right to a respectful environment. They shouldn't have to come in with neighbours telling them, hey, have you seen what the mayor's got on his Facebook about you? Posted by someone who's in Saanich or not in Saanich. Other cities do have social media policies about the staff material. Some municipalities are developing policies around what council and mayor should put on their Facebooks. My own strategy is, because I don't have all the time to monitor everything, I have a closed Facebook, but I like to post things about the happenings in Saanich. My own personal Facebook does have the ability to post on it, and some people do post, but I clean those up pretty quickly. I clean them up pretty quickly. So I am puzzled. The 15th, the 16th, the 17th, the 18th, the 19th, 5 days. I then spoke to the mayor. Let me go back to here. Excuse me. We have agreed on 4 foundations of effective collaboration that we are pledged to follow and to be held to account. Well, tonight, I'd like to hold the mayor to account. Why is he allowing comments that disrespect the district and staff and council to stay on his Facebook? His Facebook is as the mayor of Saanich. If it was Richard Atwell's Facebook or one of your Facebook, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But it's as the mayor of Saanich. If we believe in fair, if we believe in free speech, if we believe in respect, then I don't believe that kind of placement of material is appropriate, because it lends the mayor's credibility. By leaving it there, my impression is he's endorsing it. Maybe he's not. Tonight, I'd like him to talk to these items. Number 4, respect for all players, rather than personal attacks and entrenchment on positions. It's here in public tonight at the mayor's request. Thank you.
Any more discussion? Councillor Durham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't receive this information until I picked up my package. I certainly am a supporter of free speech, but we all know free speech comes to start with certain limitations, and that is that we don't say things, well, I guess we can say things, but we can be held to account legally if we say things that are harmful and are untrue. And that's standard knowledge. That's a limitation of free speech. But that's not the central issue here. I think the central issue is the question